Myers Metal Detectors, located in sunny Tampa, Florida, where we sell nothing but fun and adventures, treasure hunting gear, and anything you can imagine for metal detecting. Give us a call, 813-237-1939. Happy hunting and dig deeper.
Live from sunny Florida, it's Treasure Talk.
Welcome, friends and guests.
Welcome indeed. Yes, we do have a new look for me tonight because I'm at some friend's house for a cookout. So that's the reason why it's different. And Phil's at the beach.
Yes, I'm in the beach, so I got a different background. So first thing I want to do is say publicly, happy birthday, Jeff. A happy belated birthday, rather.
Yes, indeed. It was
Jeff's birthday. Old. Was it a good one?
Yes, it was, but I feel old.
Oh, you're not old, my friend.
Oh, I'm getting there bad.
We're all getting there. But happy birthday, and also congratulations on that cool relic you found.
That was fun.
Yeah, now tell us exactly what that was.
That was on an old crank telephone, you know, the kind that was, you had to pick it up and put the earpiece on and crank it and get the operator and say, Millie, give me 6270.
There you go.
When they're inside of it, that was the brass plate that goes on the inside of it. It came from, that was Stromberg Martin, I think. I'm not sure. But then they made a lot of telephones, and then they were bought out. And now the company is by General Dynamics. So, you know, it was from the 1800s.
Now that was just a really cool relic, and I'm sure it rang real loud on your dais too.
Oh, it pounded it.
Yeah, so that was just that's what I like about relic hunting, because you just never know what you're going to find, what nameplate or piece of equipment or whatever you're going to find. It's just really neat to dig up a piece of history, and that's a piece of history. You know, today we've got all these cell phones, smartphones, and it's just a different time, a different era, and that's the cool thing about relic hunting, because you just never know what you're going to do.
Yeah, you never do. And you know, it was an old house teardown site, so there was just tons of trash. But I do have to say, for that dais too, I was hunting in sensitive full tones, and the separation on that, and I was using my 9-inch coil, which is the coil I generally like to use when I'm dirt digging. It really separates very nicely. And so, you know, I mean, when I passed over that, boom, I knew it was something good.
Absolutely. Well, I guess since we've got a show tonight, we better get started on it.
Yes, we better.
So let me run through this real quick. Today's show, of course, is brought to you by your friends at Myers Metal Detectors, where we sell fun and adventure. And, of course, the views and comments expressed by the Treasure Talk guests and members belong solely to the guest and member, not necessarily to Phil Myers, Chelsea Myers, Jeff Monin, or Myers Metal Detectors. And take a deep breath. And, of course, the purpose of Treasure Talk is to promote the hobby of treasure hunting and metal detecting, and to educate our members in a fun, informative manner. And we're going to do that tonight, aren't we, Jeff?
Yes, it's going to be very educational tonight, I think, because of all the new detectors out. There's one that's been out for it's been out, 3 years, Phil?
Probably closer to 4 years.
It's been 4 years already?
Yes, it's been out a while, because I think mine's out of warranty now. So I'm afraid to take it in the water.
But it's a great detector.
Yes, it is. Super deep.
Yep. And this person that we have on tonight, anything you want to know about this detector, she can tell you about. And it's going to be a good night for everybody that's watching. So we'll go into that a little bit later. But I think what we need to do, I think we probably ought to just dive right in. Don't you think, Phil?
Yes, absolutely.
So everybody, if you don't know this young lady, then you are in for an exceptional treat. And those of you that do know her know that you're in it for an exceptional treat tonight. In my mind, there is nobody that knows more about the Minelab Equinox than this young lady. She hunts all the time. She's got the finds to back it up. She has written a book about how to maximize your Minelab Equinox. So let's bring on Miss Relic Dirty Hands herself, Lori Gagne. Here she is. Hello, Lori.
Hi everyone. So happy to be here today. So excited.
Welcome, Lori. Welcome to Treasure Talk. We've had you on before, but now we just have you separately this time. So I'm sure people have got a lot of questions to ask you. But let's first talk about the book. What made you want to write a book? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I remember the last time I was on Treasure Talk, I talked to Jeff and I kind of told him that, hey, if people want to know anything about the equinox, ask away. I'd love to do a show basically on the equinox. And his response was, why don't you write a book?
I'm guilty.
And that's what actually really started all of it. And it was just saying that, hey, write a book. And so I got down and I just started writing and writing and writing, and finally it's done. I finished it with a lot of ups and downs and twists and turns, and it's been a real roller coaster ride writing this book, but I'm so happy that it's done.
Well, awesome. Well, before we get started here, why don't you tell everybody where you're located at and what type of hunting you do mostly?
Okay, so I'm in Quebec, Canada. And I do actually a lot of different types of hunting. I do some water hunting when we can, when the water is warm. I do a lot of relic hunting, coin shooting, jewelry, ring returns, all sorts, farm field. I mean, from you name it. I'm pretty much an opportunist digger. If there's a place to go metal detecting, I'm happy to do it, and I'm happy to go. And yeah, so.
And your primary detector then, since you wrote the book on it, must be the Minelab Equinox 800?
It has been for 4 years now. Since the detector has come out, it has been pretty much it is the sole detector that I've used since the release, yeah.
Okay, and also I want to remind folks that if you have questions on YouTube, Jeff is going to be following that, and then Jocelyn is on Facebook on the Treasure Talk page, and she's following that. And I think Jeff might have the other Blue Spade Society Facebook page that he's following. So if people have questions, just send them in. Hopefully we can ask Lori and get the conversation going for that, for sure. So,
I'll definitely be able to answer any questions anybody has on any of the settings, what modes are best to use in certain situations and conditions. And I can explain more about recovery speed and the iron bias settings and how I actually use them, which is basically my book is all about my experiences and how and when I use those settings. A lot of people know a little bit about the settings and they just kind of set it and then they go and they stay on those settings. With myself, I'm constantly changing all of my settings, depending on the location, depending on the trash, depending just on the environment and all that sort of stuff. So,
well, let's start talking right now about the settings you use. And let's say you're in a very trashy area. What is the first setting you change?
The first setting would definitely be recovery speed, having a higher recovery speed. You try to use a lower recovery speed and high trash, you're going to get a lot of partial tones, just partial tones, and and everything's going to sound pretty much terrible. And this actually just happened last weekend. We were out metal detecting at a park, an extremely trashy park. And Eric had a signal of a 3-ringer bullet. And I was like, hey, can I listen to it? So I look at his Equinox. I see the target ID, very steady, repeatable. And then I go to try it and I'm like, I was getting a choppy signal that was missing. I couldn't get a good repeatable signal. It really sounded like a falsifying iron. So I was trying to figure out how can your Equinox be different from mine right now? What's going on? I totally had forgotten that the previous hunt before that, I had my recovery speed down to 4. We were in a forest. There was no signals. I wanted to look for the depth and get the depth. So it was really interesting to actually see how the recovery speed can really affect your targets if you're not using it properly. So if you're in high trash, definitely boost it up to 7. You're going to get a lot clearer signals, and you're not going to get those partial signals that a lot of people pass up. People hear partial, it's there, it's not there, it doesn't sound good, they move on. With a higher recovery speed, you're going to get that. You're going to get that clean, crisp signals. So.
We have a question from YouTube from Jean P. She wants to know if you hunt in the U.S. at all.
I've hunted in New York. Yes, I went down to Chazy, New York. So I had one experience metal detecting on the farm fields in the U.S. and it was just fantastic. Very similar to here. I mean, we're about 3.5 hours or 4 hours away from Chazy, New York. So.
Okay. Well, we've got a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
One from Roy Goodall wants to know how many special programs can you program and store in the Equinox 800?
Okay, so each one of your modes is considered a program. So right from the beginning, you have, 2, 4, 6, 8. So you have 8 that you can customize, but then you only have one on the 800, the Minelab Equinox 800. You do have one custom profile. So if you create a profile that you really like and that you use often, you could just click that side button and save it. So
Okay.
I actually use it now with a 40 kilohertz because I always run in multi. But here in Canada, our coins are really difficult to find and they're steel, and steel core really, I mean, the 40 kilohertz just absolutely loves it. So I'll flip back and forth to cross-reference sometimes nickel signals or gold signals or for a steel core. So that's how I use my custom setting. Is when you have one that you like, and it makes it really easy. It takes 2 seconds, one push of a button, and you're back to multi, and one push, and then you're back into your custom settings. So.
Okay,
Yeah,
Robert Ridgway from Pinellas Park off YouTube wants to know what's the newest version update that you've updated to?
I have the latest update, and I think it's a 3.1 was the last update, which was quite a long time ago. I think that update was maybe a year ago, 2.
I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
It's been a long time.
it's been a while since they've
Yeah.
updated, so maybe it's due. I don't know. It seems
Yeah.
to run really good now. So,
I love the first version. The second update, I was like, oh, I didn't like it as much. And then the third update, I absolutely love it. A lot of people ask me, should I update my machine? I personally, I often tell everybody yes. I mean, the engineers at Minelab know what they're doing. They're tweaking it. Usually there's always a benefit to using
yeah,
the updates. And plus they added, I believe, the 4 kilohertz as a single frequency option
okay.
in that one.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
I agree with you, Lori. With the new detectors coming out now with, the Deus 2 and the Legend, there's constant updates. And a lot of people don't like that. And I don't understand why they don't like it. But you need to do the updates because it may give you one other thing, but it may sharpen up something else that you use a lot.
I think the reason why a lot of people don't like using the updates is they kind of get used to, I'm so sorry, my dog right now. With the updates, a lot of people, what happens is they get their machine, already they struggle to understand the target ID numbers, the sounds, everything else. And so as soon as they make a little change, you're like, oh, I was used to this, now it sounds different. And now you got to get used to it again. So I think this is why a lot of people are kind of, some people don't want to do the update, or they do it and they're like, oh, I don't like it. If they'd only give it a little bit of time, they'd probably see that it's an improvement.
Yeah, well, I think Phil agrees with that, don't you, Phil?
yes, I think that the updates are important, and yeah, it's like learning the detector a lot of times, learning things over. But it's good because the engineers wouldn't make that update if it wasn't necessary. So in the long run, you'll be better off to update it. But I have some questions. Oh, Jeff got the one from Roy Goodall, and he had asked me, Jeff, beforehand about, hey, how about some specs on the detector? So this
Was
is
it Roy?
yeah, this is a good show for him because we're talking specifically the Equinox 800, and that's what he's swinging for sure. And then Tom Becker is asking, Phil, do you have the book? I'm going to have the book for sure because I love to read. I read the owner's manual. I'm probably the only guy who does that, except for maybe Lori and Jeff. But I always read all the owner's manuals first. because you just learn so much from it, then get out in the field, use it, and then go back and reread it. Now, this one is from Tom Becker, and he's asking, does the faster recovery speed work the same with all size coils? That is a good question.
It does. It does. I mean, the recovery speed, you're bringing it up to the fastest possible to recover fast. I know using the large coils can be, kind of difficult and a little confusing, especially in the high trash areas. But no, recovery speed on a large coil and to a small coil, from my understanding, it's the same. But you do get a lot more separation with your smaller coils than you do with the stock and the large coil. So.
And then someone is asking, Jim Southern's asking, is the audio all for me? I hear the audio perfectly, so hopefully it's him and not us, Jeff.
Yeah, well, mine may be a little different because I'm not at the Treasure Talk studios. I'm at some people's house. We're having a cookout tonight, so that's probably why I'm running a different camera, and I don't have my microphones and all that kind of stuff. So that may have something to do with it, but we'll get through it. And one other thing I wanted to say, Phil, they asked about the book. Well, we'll get into that a little bit later, and everybody's going to be happy.
Okay. All right. Well, Lori, let me ask you this question. Now, what is your favorite coil that you're using on your Equinox?
The stock coil has been one of my favorites. It's just because it's all around a great coil. It's great for some pretty trashy areas as well. It has great depth. So it's my first, my go-to coil, but I always carry, one of my other favorites is a 10x5 Coil Tech coil. That coil is my absolute favorite. I mean, when it's too trashy and way too overwhelming, you take that coil and it sounds amazing. You hear everything so clear and it's so sensitive. It's amazing. And I've used the 14x9. That one I kind of really like, but I do need a pro swing harness. I could do it about 3-4 hours with the 14x9 and the 15. The 15 Coil Tech coil. I have the small 6-inch as well, Minelab coil. But the 15-inch Coil Tech coil, I've been really impressed on how small of items they pick, because throughout all the years, I've always heard large coils are less sensitive to small items. I mean, I'm finding boot eyelets, with this large 15-inch coil. So it's been very impressive. But my go-to coil has been the stock coil. But I am so happy to have the other tools in the toolbox when I need them. It's just most of my sites, I feel that the stock is usually what it takes. But we have some sites that we had to go over with the large coil because stuff was a lot deeper. And sure enough, we found more with it, or we needed more separation. So we'd use a smaller coil. And again, more things pop up. As soon as, you don't think anything's there, you take a small coil and you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised what you can miss.
Absolutely. I always recommend people, if they're on an old site and they're looking for relics, if you're using one size coil, and you have more than one, put the other coil and go back over the same area and see if you missed anything. And this is a question from Tom Becker. He's asking, when would you use the updated F setting?
Oh, you mean the F2. So the FE is the original setting. F2, I've noticed I really, really like it when I'm in park settings or beach settings, anywhere where you do come across a lot of bottle caps. I basically use the F2 when I'm dealing with a lot of bottle caps. I'm using the FE, the original. I really love the original iron bias when I'm in iron and in more iron and later sites. So that's how I use the FE and the F2. I just find that F2 really, really works well on those bottle caps in comparison to FE. So it depends on the site and where I'm at. But I definitely use iron bias. For many, many years, I actually avoided iron bias only because, it does say in the manual that 0 is best. You could miss stuff because, it's basically taking that information saying, oh, it's more likely iron than not. Well, I always use 0. A lot of my sites are very hard hit sites. Basically, we've been at them for many, many years, different machines, everything else. So I found that it was definitely an advantage using 0. But then I did come across times where, you're limited for time. Like our farm fields get planted. We have this huge field. We're just trying to prove up. It was extremely overwhelming, so much chunky iron. So then I started using the FE4 on the Equinox 800. And it just opened up. Everything opened up. It wasn't frustrating anymore. And so before I'll get frustrated and discouraged, if I'm in a really tough situation, I'll use that iron bias. At first I was a little scared about using it and worried about it. But after using it, I was just like, oh, thank you. I'm so thankful to have that iron bias at times in certain situations, like Bottle Cap City or Chunky Iron City. And that's my FE, just as amazing. It actually eliminates, a lot of that, the sound, like what you get from the chunky iron. You hear that mid-tone, you hear the iron grunt afterwards. It can be a very confusing signal, jumps from 15 to 17-ish. And our large sense and our tokens come in around 17. So that mid-tone is something that I'm always listening for. But sometimes when I'm not looking, when the chunky iron is just bits of broken pieces and stuff, and I'm not looking to dig them, I up my iron bias to F4, and it kind of right away, it basically, instead of taking me, 30 seconds to 45 seconds analyzing that signal, I feel like I can do it in 2-3 seconds. It's like go over it, boop, 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 and it just cleans it up, and it just tells you, it just clears it up a lot more. And you're like, yeah, that's iron. And when you hear a coin or, that 17 old token, I'm sitting there going, oh yeah, that's a token. They just kind of pop out at you, the better targets and the better target sound, and they just pop out. Yeah. So I've had a good experience using the iron bias. I've been thankful for it.
We got a question from Mark Fiorella off of YouTube, and he wants to know what headphones you're using.
I'm using the wireless headphones that I got. They're 4 years old. They're a little loose now, just a tiny bit loose. They've loosened up. Whenever I have Eric's, I put on Eric. I'm like, oh no, those are tight. Those are yours. But it's been 4 years, and I've used those headphones not only for metal.
Lori, you've always said Eric's a pinhead. So what are you going to do? His headphones are going to be smaller.
He has a bigger head than me, but anyway.
That's pretty harsh.
We love him. We love him.
Hey, so that your husband hunts with you, so you guys compare targets with different settings.
Absolutely, all the time. I mean, when we're out there, we often cross-reference the signals. He'll be like, hey, listen to this one. What do you think? And I listen to it, and I'm like, well, I don't like the sound of that one, or I'll be like, yeah, I really like that one. And he does it for me as well, where I'm like, what do you think? Because there's some signals that are just very confusing and difficult. And sometimes when you're hunting with somebody and you're both analyzing, it's great. I mean, we just did it the other day, and I was like, no, I was sure it was a mass coin. And he's like, oh, it's not. It sounds like, I'm sure it's iron. And I'm like, we almost have these wagers, and we dig it out anyway. And sure enough, it was like a nail. And it was like, oh, darn it, I thought I was right, So it's great hunting with him, and having the same machine. It's been fantastic. I mean, we have these conversations all the time and discussions on a daily basis. Every time we go out in a hunt, hey, did you notice this? Do you notice that? So I feel that that's really what brought me up to the point where I'm now on knowing this machine so well, is having Eric around as well to have all these discussions on a daily basis and working some things out. And he's been, he's my better half.
Well, that makes really good sense. When you're hunting with somebody a lot, and spitball, so to speak, off each other. I know when Phil and I are hunting together, and then the Mumbles man is with us, all three of us, we'll have a signal, and then we get together and everybody listens to the signal and puts input in.
Absolutely.
So that really does help, I have to say. Don't you think, Philip?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you can compare signals from other detectors and other settings, especially on the Equinox, because there's so many different settings you can change, and most people don't. Most people don't read the manual, and they just use the stock settings, and just do it that way. But as you've been, Laura, you've been using the detector for 4 years, as Jeff and I have, and you learn. Your ear develops, you know, to tune. You know that's a bottle cap using the F2 setting. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, that's the reason to use that setting, because that was the F2 was, I think, their latest update on the Equinox, and it was actually used in the Vanquish to help people eliminate bottle caps too. Because at the beach, let's face it, that's the biggest problem there on the beach. It's no problem with fish hooks or bobby pins or crab wire. You know it's junk, but the
Yeah.
bottle caps will fool the detector a lot of times.
Oh yeah, and
And that
any
and raising that F2, it's fantastic. It messes up the bottle cap. It really uglies it up even more. So, when I hear a bottle cap, sometimes I can hear this kind of, you hear the tone and then it follows with this kind of or talk, this kind of talk sounding, and you hear the little characteristics of the tones after a while. You raise
Right.
that F2 and it messes it up. It makes it ugly. It's like an ugly signal. And you're like, yeah, definitely, I'm not going to dig that up. And that's what I find the F2 does. It uglies up bottle cap tones. So just makes them
Yeah.
sound worse. The higher you set it, the worse the bottle caps will sound.
Yeah,
So
I think it picks up the edges of the bottle cap or something. It does
and
something
it's
that
round,
makes them sound bad. But
and
I
it's
have a
round, so you
bunch,
get a good tone. Yeah.
right. The,
mm,
the coin or the clean edge, you'll hear that perfectly. And I think that's two, besides the F2, is learning to hear that, get
yeah.
your ear accustomed to it. I've got a couple questions here that Jocelyn just handed me on Facebook. The one is from Martin Bishop, and he's saying, two, I guess that's F2, is factory reset needed to be done when you change the coil? And how do I see what update I'm using at present time?
Okay. To see what update you have, you can always plug in your detector to go onto the Minelab website for the update. And when you plug it in, it'll basically tell you what version. If you don't have the latest version, you'll be able to find out that way. That was a two-part question. What was the first part?
Um, is a
Factory
factory reset needed to when you change the coil?
No, it's not. I change my coils all the time. I know the sound of the machine. I've never had any issues by not doing a manufacturer reset. But something that I do tell a lot of people, I do this myself about once a month. I'll actually do a reset on my machine. I just find that it really helps. Sometimes you accidentally press stuff and this sort of stuff. And I just find that by doing a manufacturer reset once a month or ever so often, it kind of just recalibrates. I don't know if you could say that, but I find that, after a while, yeah, I do a manufacturer reset because sometimes it seems just a little off. I can hear it a little bit. So that's what I usually say, is just do a manufacturer reset once in a while. Some people accidentally have their tracking on, their tracking ground balance on, stuff like that. Usually when that's the case, and I see that, I said, just manufacturer reset, start over. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't take long to set up custom settings and all that sort of stuff. And
No,
like,
it doesn't.
yeah.
We
And
got a question from YouTube from Jean P. She wants to know, have you ever compared signals with another hunter that's using, let's say, the Deus 2?
Not the Deus 2. One of my friends just got the Deus 2. We haven't had an opportunity to hunt with him yet, so we haven't cross-referenced any signals. But I do watch a lot of YouTube, and I have been very, very interested in watching all the comparison tests and stuff like that. I've been very intrigued, and I love detectors, and I love seeing their performance. So I haven't got to see it myself and cross-reference myself with somebody else yet. But hopefully I will. Hopefully TJ will get together with TJ sometime and we could see it cross signals. That'd be fun.
get together with somebody with the Naka legend too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually Perry, my friend Perry, he just got his. We went for a hunt with him, but he was very new to it. We didn't have any chance to cross-reference, but hopefully we'll get in for a hunt with Perry as well.
That'd be a great video if you could
Yeah,
have both those people,
Yes,
the
all
Deus
three
2
of
and the
them
Legend,
together.
and you with the Equinox, and doing the comparisons. That would be an absolute killer video.
probably. That'd be interesting, and basically doing like
My
real life
recommendation, Lori. Hey, I hadn't steered
comparison.
you wrong yet. Hey,
What's that?
take my recommendation. I told you to write a book. You wrote a book. It's going to be a bestseller, and so do a collab video with that. You can't go wrong. Eh?
You can't go wrong. You're always full of great ideas, Jeff. Always full of fantastic ideas.
Well, I'm full of something. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but
I'm not going to go there.
Don't laughing, Philip.
Hey, I do have a question. Jocelyn just handed me this from Tom Becker, and he's asking the tones you use. Do you use 5 or 50 tones when you're relic hunting there?
50 tones. 50 tones is my baby. 50 tones, it gives you a lot more target identification, audio target identification. So you have a lot more information. So, 5 tones, 50 target ID numbers, that gives you some information. So it kind of breaks down in this section with this number. Okay, it could be this. With the 50 tones, I just find I can listen, and it really gives me, it gives better target audio information. It just gives me so much information. I can't go back to the 5. I tried it. 5 I find is really, really good for new detectorists and detectorists that have been using the Equinox for about a year. Usually after a year to a year and a half, I tell them it's time. It's time, because it's not that hard. If you're really used to the 5 tones, it's not that hard to switch over the 50 tones. They're very, very similar. You just have to think that, within this 5-tone branch you had here, well, now you have, it's like gradient, it's a little higher, 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 higher. So you start to be able to tell the difference between a pull tab or like a, and a nickel, pull tab and a nickel, one's 12 and one's 14. You can hear the difference between them.
Yeah,
so it would be.
I really do, is going from 5 tones to graduate to 50 tones. Their fines are going to go up because, on the 5 tones, it's fine in certain areas, but the 50 tones is got such a broad spectrum that you can get some little whisper signals that are pretty strong on 50 tones you don't get on 5. And I think that their fines will definitely go up using 50 tones. I really do.
So do I. I really do. I find it just has so much more audio information. It's like taking 50 numbers and 50 tones, and you analyze both the sound, how the sound is coming in, and the numbers, how they're coming in. I just find it gives you a lot more to work with. It takes less guessing. I just find less guessing into that. What is that? It's
yeah.
So what do you use, Phil? Are you using 50 mostly?
When I'm on the beach, I use 5 tones. Because I just dig it. I come from a PI background that I dug everything. So just being able to eliminate the iron is fine. I'll dig everything that's not iron on the beach. But if I'm relic hunting, I try to use the 50 tones.
The 50 tones.
It's just everything isn't compressed into 5 tones.
That's it. Everything's kind of compressed,
Yeah.
and I can understand that on a beach. Yeah, you want to dig everything. There's anything that you hear on a beach that repeats, you're going to want to dig that for sure. Gold isn't such a large range of numbers that.
And I've even, on the beach, I've even dug negative numbers that it was just out of the range of the detector, and it's given me a negative number. It's just a really deep target. You have no idea, good or bad. You just dig it. Especially if I'm bored, then I'm digging negative numbers, and I'm digging everything because there's just so little targets there. Then I'll dig, and a lot of times if it's out of the range of the detector, it might read a negative number.
I love how you brought that up. I'm so happy you brought that up. A lot of people don't realize when you're at the max depth of the detector, you're not going to get that same target ID. You're not going to get that same response. When it's at the max, often you either get, sometimes it drops into the negative, or you'll just get 2 bars, just the 2 lines, and you'll hear something vaguely and it's gone and it's there. I investigate those. I dig them out. I start the plug, I scan, and as you open up your plug, it starts to clear up and you start to hear it more. And that's when should I go deeper? Should I go for it? Or no, that's a nail or something like that. So
I got a question for you too about threshold. And I'm sure there are people thinking about that. I always run threshold.
Good job. Yes.
Because a lot of times, and this comes back from my Excalibur days. I dug a lot of gold rings that were just a blank out in the threshold. And the same thing with the Equinox. If it's real deep, you'll get just an interruption in the threshold.
Yes.
And then you put a couple of scoops on it or something, for instance, on the beach, and then you'll start getting a VDI number and a tone. But that threshold, I think, is very important. I know Phil hunts with threshold as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I definitely wrote a chapter actually in the book in regards to that, because some people were saying, you won't hear threshold blanking unless you discriminate. Now, I was sitting there, and a lot of people, there was kind of a rumor going around that you're not going to hear your threshold blank unless it's something that you've discriminated, right? And that was not the case. It's not the case. I use all metal and I can hear the audio blanking, and that did happen. I heard audio blanking. I was like, what is this? I'm scrubbing the ground. I boost up my sensitivity, trying to get, more of a signal. And sure enough, I dug that signal and it ended up being a very old, deep copper. I mean, really deep. Mm-hmm. And I was like shocked. I was like, what? And that's, again, the threshold definitely helps when it comes to when you have a lot of deep targets and you get that blanking. You just know it blanks, there's something there. It's not registering. You don't see the number, you don't hear the number, but it's something there. If it blanks, there's something there.
It's interrupting the signal. And I always hunt with the Equinox in all metal, always.
Me too.
Awesome, yeah. I think you do too, don't you, Phil?
Yes, I like the all metal because before we had the F2 setting, I could hear that bottle cap easier in all metal. As you swing your coil closer to it, the tip or the toe of the coil will give you that negative number. You get right over top of it's in the gold range, and you just knew it. I mean, after digging 30 or 40 of them, hey, that's a bottle cap every time. Yeah. But now the F2 does make that easier. But I've always said this with any detector: the deeper the target, of course, the less accurate the target ID is going to be.
Sure. Yeah.
So you get, that's any detector, and you go down, you're getting just a whisper signal, and it's just super deep. You better dig out some dirt and get closer to it to get a better accurate signal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, that's one of the secrets of detecting is the deeper the target, the less accurate the detector is.
It's true. It's really true. And like with our small pennies, we have, some of our small pennies, the older ones anyway, they come in at a 20. And it'll be like a 20 when it's on the surface, or not on the surface, a few inches down, repeatable flat, it's going to be, give you a good 20. And as soon as that coin got down to about 8 inches or 9 inches, I noticed that target ID number dropped to 14, 15. A lot of people are thinking, oh, that's a bottle cap, a pull tab, or whatever. But I know if it's deep and it doesn't matter the target ID. It really doesn't matter. For me, it's the quality of the sound, the depth. When you know it's at the depth, you know that it's going to sound lower or even disappear into the negatives or even go blank and you only have your 2 lines or you hear your threshold blanking. So, yeah.
And there again, it's another case for the 50 tones.
Absolutely.
The nuances of the tones.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
So subtle differences.
Now, even old buzzards like me that can't hear,
Now, Laura, you have a lot of stainless coins then, right? All your new coins, aren't they stainless steel?
Yes, they are. They're steel core, so they're like a sandwich with like a nickel. I think it's a steel core, nickel plated or something like this. And already, nickel is also a very, very difficult metal for a lot of machines. But yes, they're steel core. They've been giving us a lot of trouble. But the amazing thing is there's a lot of people that say, yes, my machine can find these new clad coins, Canadian coins. And often I'll tell them, take a look at the date on your coin, just see if it's 2000 and up, and then try. And often they'll try those coins and they're like, wait a second, no, I'm not picking them up, because they're very difficult. But the Equinox does pick them up. They do jump from 2.5, 2.57. Anybody who's a gold hunter and who's out there on the beach looking for gold, they're going to dig the clad coins. They're kind of a jumpy signal, and they're not very pretty, but they're there. Or I always recommend to people to use 40 kilohertz. If you just looking for that steel core coins, throw it in 40 kilohertz. They're going to sound sweet and high, but so will the bottle caps. The bottle caps are going to be like, woo, and it's a bottle cap. So this is another thing about the single frequencies and the multi frequencies. And I have a whole chapter on that in the book as well. I did a lot of testing on the single frequencies and the multi frequency. And I have to say 100% multi frequency is the most accurate frequency, like compared to the single frequencies. I was shocked to see what some of the single frequencies wouldn't pick up. So you have a lot of people that sit there going, yeah, I love my 5 kilohertz or my 4 kilohertz. And, that's all they use. And yet they don't understand what that 4 and 5 kilohertz. I mean, the lower frequencies, they struggle with low conductors. They really do. They struggle with gold. I mean, I was shocked to see that 4 and 5 kilohertz wouldn't pick up a gold ring, or it wouldn't even pick up a gold catch. Like, I took all the gold I have, threw it on the ground, put it over, and it struggled. I mean, depending on some of your conditions, I guess, and EMI, there's a lot of things can play a role in that. But in all of my tests on the gold, these lower frequencies weren't picking them up. Right. And I noticed that with tomback buttons, there wasn't one of the single frequencies. And as a relic hunter, I want to find those tomback buttons. I was shocked that when I'm in 4 and 5, or actually 10, 15, 20, and 40, it wouldn't pick up tomback. And it was only multi, when I threw it in multi, could it pick up tomback. So like I said, I know that the single frequencies just seem easier to use. Some of the low, the 4 and 5 kilohertz, yes, they're very deep. Yes, they hate iron. Yes, it sounds a lot better. But yes, you're also going to miss stuff. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't kind of realize by using those single frequencies. There are stuff. So you're going to have to go back on your site again, either using multi or another frequency, or, so. Right. I use the single frequencies to cross-reference my signals, or if I need a brain break, and if I'm really specifically only looking for silver, or I'm only looking for gold, I'll choose that single frequency for that sometimes. But
okay, yeah, I always said that the multi-frequency, you're getting a bigger picture of all targets in the ground.
It's picking
your
up
high conductors, your low conductors, everything.
Everything.
So you're better to do that. Hey, I do have a question from Stephen Wigington. Justin, just hand me this. What machine were you using before the Knox, and what made you switch?
Okay, I used the Garrett GTA 550 when I first started. I used that for about a year, and then I switched over. We purchased the MXT Pro. Used that for about 7 years or so. And the reason why I wanted to buy another detector is because Eric and I were sharing it. So we shared one detector, even though we had the old Garrett, we were still sharing, and we had a family, young family. So we're kind of taking our turns. So when it was time, finally, the kids were older, and it was finally, okay, we both want a machine. Then I
buy some machines.
What's that?
Put them to work so you can buy more machines.
So I decided to try out the new machine that had just come out at the time, which was the MX Sport. Only because I had this one site. I never had a water machine. I really wanted to get into this site that had really old relics from like the fur trade and stuff. So I intentionally bought it for that. I was very, very disappointed because lead was one of the relics. They have a lot of rolled lead, a lot of stuff they made out of lead, and unfortunately, the machine wasn't picking it up. I struggled in really high trash. I struggled while the people were running while the MXT was running circles around me, and the CTX 30, and everybody's pulling out point. I was struggling. And even got to like the 3-ringer bullet. I just wanted to find one so bad. Everybody was pulling them out. I asked them, hey, if next one you get, let me try it out. And I went over it, and it blank, nothing, no, wouldn't pick it up. So at that point, I was just like, oh, okay, this is not the machine for me. I used it for 2 years. I tried everything possible, but to see how the MXT was compared to, and I mean, Eric and I, like I said, we've been hunting together for so long. So unfortunately, I realized that no, I don't think that that machine was right for me. And when they came out with the Minelab Equinox, it was always like something that I dreamt about was a Minelab. I was super excited with their new machine because they were saying it was multi-frequency. It was waterproof. It pretty much had everything that I was looking for. And the only thing is, I guess that's what kind of motivated me to learn the machine as well, because I did find with the MX Sport, maybe I was missing something. Maybe I didn't have the settings right. Maybe. And I just could not have another machine do that to me. So as soon as I got that Equinox, I mean, we went into study mode. I mean, I went all the way, starting from the basics. How does a metal detector work? I went all the way, to even frequencies. How do frequencies travel? I just studied and studied because I just didn't want to question myself ever again. Is it me or is it the machine? I don't want that to happen again. So there's my story about the machines and why I ended up with the Minelab Equinox.
Well,
That was a smart move. Smart move.
it's a good detector, and it started all these other detector brands trying to go to multi-frequency. Because I remember the MX Sport, I sold quite a few of those. And although my response is different, I like the detector, just it was too heavy.
It was heavy.
And it was very heavy compared to the Equinox. But I
Okay.
do have another question here. This one is from Tom Becker, and he's asking, in your book, did you run tests with US coins too?
In my book, I didn't really run tests. The only tests that I ran was with single frequencies. And it wasn't really on coins. It was basically, I was looking at the metals. So I was looking at aluminum. I was looking at gold, copper, zinc, brass. I was looking, at tom back buttons. In my tests, it was basically, I was looking at the conductivity of the metals more than what, a single coin or this sort of stuff. If not, my book would probably have been 500 pages if I would have done tests on every, on the Canadian coins or US coins and all that sort of stuff. Basically, my tests were on, we'll say a gold ring in comparison to, a small, fine piece of gold, like a little clasp from a jewelry, a larger gold ring and a gold cash. And same thing with the silver, small silver, larger silver, and so on. So those were the kind of tests that I did for my book. My book is really focused mainly on your basic settings that affect the function of the detector and the ones that you need to tweak.
Yes, and speaking of your book,
Yes.
if you will notice, everybody out there watching, all our viewing audience, as I alluded to a little earlier, this is your lucky day. If you swing a Minelab Equinox, if you're thinking about purchasing a Minelab Equinox, or if you just want a really good read by a very, very talented individual, you'll see the email that I have on the screen, dirtyhands001@gmail.com. Now, Lori's book is not in print, it's all digital. And she agreed for tonight's show, for all of you lucky people out there, all you need to do is you need to email her at dirtyhands001@gmail.com. Tell her how much you enjoyed the show. Tell her that you saw her on Treasure Talk and request a digital copy of her book, How to Maximize Your Minelab Equinox, and she will send it to you free of charge. Now, you can't beat that with a big stick, and I'm telling you. And there's not a better book out there by a more talented individual, I must say. So
Yeah. So anybody who wants the book, just send me an email. Let me know that you're interested in getting the book, and I'll email it right out to you. So it's free. The whole point of me making this book was just to help everybody. I really want to get this information out there just to help people that, might be struggling. You could be new to the Equinox, or you could have used the Equinox for, years. And you might, there might be something in there for you, because there's a lot of stuff, including characteristics, some of the characteristics that we hear of the tones and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I really think is really fun about my book, because it's not it's not a technical book. So it's not I mean, it is kind of technical, but what I do is instead of using technical, I basically explain it to you through experience. Basically, you know, the fish hooks, you were saying something about the fish hooks. I was at this one site and the fish hooks were wisping and driving me crazy. And so instead I was in a park, so I switched over to Park 1. Because Park 1, you know, it doesn't pick up the little itty bitties. All of a sudden, it was like cleared everything up. And, you know, so I talk a lot about how to adjust your settings and when to adjust your settings, or kind of the experiences that I had, and what I find that really works. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of saltwater experience or gold prospecting experience, but a lot of relic coin shooting and jewelry hunting and all that sort of stuff. So.
And a lot of the same things apply to saltwater and gold prospecting.
Absolutely.
And we're already getting the questions. Is it ever going to be out in a print edition? We'll keep you posted. If it comes out in a print edition, Lori will let me know. I know this for an absolute fact, and we will let you know. And Phil will have them in stock at Myers Metal Detectors.
Now, I know that not everybody likes to read. I know while I was sending it out just to get some reviews and some feedback, you know, some people were like, oh, I don't read books, you know. I know that not everybody likes to read books. When on the digital copy, there's a lot of ones that you could just copy and it could talk it and read it out to you. So, you know, if you don't like reading books, well, it could read it to you. A lot of, I think my Word program does that. It'll actually read it out to you. But I do plan possibly to read my book and just put it out on YouTube. So it's just going to be like an audio of my book as well, because I understand not everybody likes to read.
Read.
So, you know, I might actually put it out on my YouTube channel eventually. I might just read it to everybody and say, hey, all right, let's read a book. And read it.
What, that's a great gift that you're giving to these people. And I know that you and Eric really love to give back to this wonderful hobby that has given you so much. And this is the ultimate give back in my mind. You know, it's taken you years, you guys, at least 4 years of you and Eric. I mean, you're out there all the time, you're collaborating with each other, and you're, you know, learning this machine. And a lot of people now are going to have a huge benefit from your kindness. So,
you know, I just wish that this book existed when I first got the Equinox. I know that I had purchased some of the books and this sort of stuff, but I wish this book existed, you know, and I actually had given somebody a copy of the book, and they didn't even get their detector. They just ordered it. So then they read the book, and right after they finished reading the book, they said, oh my goodness, I feel ready to go. And to my amazement, this person barely had any questions after and have been succeeding with the Equinox, you know, one hunt after the next. And they're actually never struggled with it. My whole point, you know, for the book was to help people not struggle, because I just seen when it first came out, so many people were struggling, so many people were frustrated at certain things, and it's because they didn't understand it. And really my book is basically to bring those things to light. You know, what does a falsifying nail do? You know, what does that sound like, and what do? You know, quick trick, you know, just reduce your sensitivity. You know, surprising, a lot of people don't even realize it. And if you're, you know, hunting in 24 sensitivity and it's falsing all over the place, you bring that down to 23, 22 even, you're not going to lose a lot of depth. You're not going to lose a lot. And it is amazing on how it'll quiet down those falsifying nails and stuff like that. So there's a lot of great tricks in there, and a lot of stuff to help somebody who's been at it for a year, or somebody who's been at it for a few years but are afraid to change and touch the settings. After you read this book, you're not going to be afraid. You're going to be like, that's what I got to do, because really that's what you got to do. There's not one site that I know of that I haven't adjust either my recovery speed or my sensitivity, or even sometimes the iron bias. You know, so it depends on the site. As I approach a really trashy site, I up my recovery, you know, and I reduce my sensitivity. You know, as I get out of the trashy spot, well, I boost up my sensitivity more, I lower my recovery, and, you know, so I explain all this sort of stuff. You know, how to maximize your Equinox, really. It's really how to maximize it on every hunt. Don't be afraid of the settings. The settings are there to help you get through these difficult, difficult circumstances that we all detectors come through. No, there's not one site that's the same. That's why there's not one setting that I can give anybody that's perfect for this site. I can't do it. I can explain to them what I would do and what I would try and this sort of stuff, but you got to hear your own site. You got to hear how trashy it is. You got to hear how much contamination there is in the ground, how much EMI. Is it the EMI that's playing around with your, then reduce your sensitivity, smaller coil, all sorts of tricks and stuff that will help get through those tough situations. So.
Okay, we've got a question. I don't know who it is. It's from a Facebook user, and they want to know, would I be allowed to print out your ebook so I can read from a hard copy? It's just easier for them on their eyes to after they print it out. And your answer would be?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The only thing is that I did format the book as a 6x9, I think the size of it is. So if you print it out, you might have like a waste of paper. I don't know. So one person printed it out and they said, oh, they had all space all around, only because the paper size of the book, if I did get it printed, I wanted it to be a 6x9. So I wanted it to be that kind of size of book. So.
It's a gift for them. So the cost of a little bit of paper for all the knowledge and expertise that you're passing on, I think it's pretty much an even.
Definitely. I find that, everybody, you can share the book. The only thing that I suggest, if anybody does want the book, I prefer that they email me and ask me for it. I mean, if your friend wants a copy of the book, you could send it to them. The only thing is if there's going to be any updates or any changes, I might have a version 2 or a version 3 if there's any mistakes or anything. I mean, the mistakes. It was crazy. I had my mother-in-law who edited the book, and then I had Joanna from Focus Speed, and she helped me out. And I was so thankful for her. She was incredible. She found so many errors that, after she got through it, I was sitting there going, okay, now I feel confident. I'm not an author. I never thought of myself as a writer before. So I had so much help by so many people to write this book, and I couldn't have done it without them. And I just really want to say thank you to them, because I would have been so stressed out tonight. I'd be so embarrassed.
No reason to be stressed out, because I have to tell you, and I know Phil agrees with me, that this is a gift from you to the metal detecting community that's going to up their fines. It's going to make their hobby, their time swinging the detector much, much more pleasant. And we owe you a debt of gratitude for doing this, Lori. It comes from your big heart. You have the biggest heart of anybody I know. You love to share, and what you're sharing with everybody tonight is just it's an immense thing, and you're to be commended for it. And I want to say thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. You're gonna make me cry.
Absolutely. If you look at the feed on Facebook, everybody it must have been 15 of them were going, awesome, thank you. So you made a lot of people happy tonight. I did have a couple questions. One is, how many pages is the book?
Oh, it's not that big. It's 100 pages. But remember, it's on 6x9. So it's not your average sheet of paper, right? So it's 100 pages. It's funny how it fell. I think 100 to 101 pages or something like that. It just, I told myself, and one of the goals is when I started writing the book is like, hey, I'd like at least 100 pages, And I didn't think I would get there, because my first draft, I wasn't even close. I was like 46 pages, and my family was sitting there and they motivated me the whole time. They're like, you wrote 46 pages. I'm like, yeah, but it's not where I want to be. And they're like, that's amazing. So I had the biggest support from my family, rooting me on, saying, I can't believe you're doing this. And they've been the fantastic support. But yes, 100 pages. 100 pages.
I have to say that you got a pretty good dude there with Eric. It doesn't get much better. You guys go together like peas and carrots. So, you tell
it's been 20 years.
We love him, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts for him assisting you.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's been 20 years. I can't believe it. We just May 18th just passed by, and it's been 20 years with him. Wow. It's been the best 20 years of my life, I'll tell you.
Well, it's been the best 20 years of his life. I can promise you that.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know. I can be a challenge. I can be a challenge at times, I can be quite the challenge.
That's okay.
Jeff,
it's our time is up now. Do you believe
Yeah.
that, people, that we've been on for an hour already?
It goes so fast. I'm always amazed at how fast this goes. So Jeff, I have to do a little information here for the shop. I'm going to be there tomorrow, but I'm going to be closed Wednesday and of course Thursday, and I'll be back in Friday afternoon. I'm over at the beach right now, Lori, and my excuse for being over here is I'm testing detectors. That's what
Awesome.
I tell
Good
people.
excuse. Perfect.
And also I got a chance, and I'll have to do a regular video. Jocelyn and I were taking a video of me with the Blue Nemo, so I'm gonna do a regular video with that. We were trying to take pictures of me in the pool using it, and
Yeah, you did
that is
1 second video.
a 1 second videos. We were trying to take pictures, but we'll figure the iPhone out.
Oh,
But
it'll be all right. It'll be all right.
it's an awesome product too. Have you ever used one of those Blue Nemos?
No, but I've been thinking about it. Eric and I have, because we do ring returns, and there was one ring return that was just out of our reach. So we're
Yes.
not divers or anything like that. And we thought maybe the Nemo would be perfect just to get
10 feet.
It
a
is.
little further.
You know,
Yeah.
Allison Walker. Ask her about it. She
Oh,
got
I already have. She's been great. She gave me a lot of information. She's been an angel about it.
Yeah, it's a cool product, and it would get you out to 10 feet of water. So most of the ring
I think I'll send
recoveries are
Eric.
less than that.
I would
Yeah,
probably send Eric. I don't know.
I would in
Yeah.
case there's something out there to bite you. Send Eric. What the heck?
there
Exactly.
you go. Well, at least you don't have to worry about alligators up there.
No.
No.
But anyway, I wanted to thank you for being on the show with us.
You're
And thank
welcome.
you, Jocelyn, for giving me the questions. And thank you, Jeff. And I wanted to tell everybody happy Memorial Day. And let's try to remember what Memorial Day is all about, too, my friend.
Yes, indeed. I was going to say that for all of those out there watching, you just need to remember, and I think it applies to Canada and all around the world. Some gave a little and some gave all.
Yes.
So let's remember them today.
Yes.
And just a one brief moment of silence and think about all those people that never made it home. So we can do and have the privilege of doing what we did tonight and listening to an outstanding speaker about a great book. It's because of what they did. So
Absolutely.
I just want to just say, happy Memorial Day, and think about it for the right reasons. Now, on another note, this Thursday night, June 2nd, it's already June, Phil. You believe that?
Oh, time flies. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, there will not be a Treasure Tales this Thursday night. We had, if you've ever watched the Food Network, you've seen Restaurant Impossible. Well, yours truly, the fat old booger, may be on Restaurant Impossible airing Thursday night. So they were here in Madison and did an episode here. So we had the opportunity to go in there. So there'll be no Treasure Tales on Thursday night. We're having a viewing party. But we'll be right back next week. So Phil, I want to thank you and Jocelyn for everything you do. I love you. You know that.
Love you too.
Lori, I love you. Thanks for coming on tonight. It was just an outstanding night, and I think everybody really liked it. I want to thank everybody that watched with us tonight and hung in there with us, and we just enjoy your viewing, and we hope that we brought you a top quality show. I know we brought you a top quality guest tonight.
Absolutely.
So we want to thank everybody. We're going to say good night. So happy hunting, everybody, and dig deeper.
Happy hunting and dig deeper, guys.